public comment, please come to the podium, introduce yourself. We'll keep a 3-minute timer. We will also be having a public comment period at the beginning of the new business preliminary budget review, which is a public hearing. So if your comment is budget related, perhaps that would be a good time for it as opposed to this initial one. Is anyone in the audience looking to make a public comment? And I don't see any raised hands on Zoom, so we'll close public comment and move on to our first item on the agenda, which is new business for a public hearing, the 2024 preliminary budget. And since this is a public hearing, we will begin with public comment. Would anyone in the audience like to make a public comment about budget? All right, and if you're on Zoom, please click the raise hand button. We can promote you. We have very light attendance today on Zoom. There's only 3. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Since it's a public hearing, we'll now have an introduction of the budget, followed by discussion, and then potentially some type of decision.
Perfect. All right, so I do want to apologize for the organization of the budget at this time. We are transitioning to a new, very neat online system. But in that transition, I'm still learning how to do that. So the way it is printed out is definitely not ideal, but happy to talk through it with you all. As you can see on their first memo that I presented, we have pretty much doubled our budget in 2022, 2023, and looking at 2024 from previous years. This is accounting for increase in sales tax revenue as well as grants that we've received and our new infrastructure project at Anisi Park. So I just kind of wanted to give you some context around that. We're looking at spending our general fund balance down again in 2024. So really trying to make it so money in, money out, and we're good stewards of public funds. There are several projects that I have put in that budget, including Blair Street match funds. That was committed to Kendall Deck patio, code rewrite. Actually, I was going to take off that paying off the debt service plow blade because we kind of just have to do that. And then we have wetlands inventory, 150th anniversary, perimeter trail, and housing coordinator benefits. So these are all extras that we see as kind of decision points if we want to moving forward. Let's see, I could go through this line by line with y'all. I think we did that in our budget workshop, but really kind of talking about some of the new positions we have created as well, like the Public Works Administrative Coordinator to help fix our meters. This is an ongoing problem and hopefully help alleviate some of the tasks that our current clerk has, and that position has just proven to be unsustainable at this point. So we're trying to separate out some of those duties. Anisi Park summer attendant, we're going to try out potentially a summer attendant at Anisi Park. Special projects and housing coordinator, this is in there as the benefits, and the rest is, and the actual salary of this position is grant funded. And then the grant coordinator that works with San Juan Development Association is grant funded by San Juan Development, but the funding goes through the town first. So this is budgeted. And then promoting community development coordinator to director, and partially grant funded with the Brownsfield grant. So those are our new positions proposed. I'm just kind of walking through my memo here to give you guys some context. And then if you'd like, anytime, feel free to ask questions or dive into a specific topic. Yes.
I have a really high level framing question.
Yep.
So, the current revenue projected in this budget is 4.167,565,000. And the current expenditure is 4,961,919. And in a perfect world, are those numbers going to match?
Yes, if we didn't have a fund balance to spend down, it would match.
Okay.
Right now, we didn't spend the amount that we thought we would in 2022 of our fund balance down. So this is another attempt to try and spend down that fund balance as well. Am I nervous that, maybe, we've created some positions that aren't sustainable in the future? Not at this point, because we are matching basically the personnel is matching our sales tax right now. So that does make me a little nervous. And that we do have some grant funded positions so that, those are always subject to end if we don't have that.
Cool.
Funds.
I had two other kind of similar questions. So the next one is, what's the ideal projected fund balance for us in the circumstances? Right now, we're projecting 134,856 at the end of spending all of this. Do we want to spend that to zero, or do we want that to, are we targeting like 250, or like what's the target fund balance?
Honestly, I'd like a little bit more of a buffer. We do have our $500,000 in reserves. So it's just me thinking conservatively. But I mean, ideally, I'd like to have 200 to 300, but that's really an arbitrary number just to keep me happy.
So, which is leading to the last question, which is going to help me make a bunch of suggestions or decisions or other questions tonight, which is, my understanding of this version of the budget is that this is an assumption of a yes to everything that's been proposed so far.
Correct.
So every partner, every nonprofit, all the emergency services, we've just taken the budget presented, regardless of how much it's increased or the justification for the increase. We've just added everything in as a line item. And so it's quite possible that as a result of our discussion, the projected expenditure decreases somewhat. And it sounds like we should be targeting a decrease in the ballpark of $70,000 to $170,000 to hit your comfortable level of projected fund balance. Is that?
I think that about sums it up. And we do have a list of outstanding items too that will need to be changed as well, like our administration fees, revenue, sheriff's budget. Like some of the items have been carried over from last year. This is line item budgeting as opposed to like zero-based budgeting where we start from zero every year. So just going on the assumption that we've been doing line item budgeting for years, this is a lot of the lines are last year's lines carried over unless there's been an ask or a change.
Well, and I guess the one I thought of just now is just my very last question, I promise, is there anything material that isn't currently reflected in the budget that we're discussing tonight that we would say, oh, there's another $170,000 thing that we probably want to put in there? That's been already the subject of lots of discussion or a trustee priority or something like
I
that.
hope I didn't miss that, but I'll look through that and see. I mean, we don't have an updated sheriff's budget, and we did just talk to them earlier, or to Willie earlier, that there might be an increase there. And then there, as far as revenue goes, if we do calculate our administrative fees the way we have been calculating them, those will likely go up as well.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Did you have more from your memo you wanted to summarize before we dive in?
I would just highlight a couple of our funds, a general fund. We've kind of talked through a little bit of that, but so as far as, there's the water fund and the sewer fund, which right now are not sustainable. We're losing money in those funds every year and spending down those fund balances when we should be gaining funds and actually saving up. So we are in the middle of 2 rate studies right now. One of them's for free, which we've been in for like the last 2 years, I think. So we decided to pony up and pay for one to try and get an actual rate study done. And we're in the middle of that right now. And as soon as we get that information, and I'm hoping by November or December, we'll be able to give you all kind of an idea of what rates might look like in the future, a plan for rates, and how we might readdress administration fees as well. Because right now in the water fund, particularly the water fund, we are charging the water fund for the administration fees, and it's the same amount that we're getting in revenue right now. So it's just not sustainable at this point. For the refuse fund, we do need to address the EQR rates. They are not equal across the board right now, and we really need to make them equal. And EQR rates are the rates that we charge our businesses. And since it's going to be negative another year, even though we had put some money into it to try and keep it afloat, we are going to need to reabsorb it into the general fund. We can break it out like we do with like streets and Kendall, but it will need to be reabsorbed into the general fund. And I think those are the big ones. I mean, Mullis is doing great. Library is something that we subsidize. It's not really its own like business fund like the other ones. So we just
Could you summarize your references to the administrative fee and how you see that changing? Because I think our last budget meeting, the recording was not super clear for folks. So maybe not for the board's benefit, but just for the public of like what you're talking about when you're changing. We need to adjust the administrative fee. Just
sure. So the general fund charges the water fund and the sewer fund and the refuse fund a certain percentage of our personnel time that we commit to that fund. And those are anywhere from 20% to 40%, depending on the personnel, because all the personnel is coming out of the general fund. So we separate that out and charge those funds because they act as enterprise funds, which is like their own business funds. And it's really important to be accurate on that. There are some thoughts on how to facilitate new administration fees where we would maybe set a flat rate, a flat percentage of a revenue. That's another tactic that a lot of communities use. So we're kind of looking at that, but really this rate study will help us determine kind of what the best mode would be for us.
Thanks.
You think line by line is a public?
I can go line by line, yeah. Do we want to start with revenue, or are you guys more wanting to focus on expenditures?
I'd go for expenditures. That's where the decisions are kind of, but.
And then eventually would love to brainstorm some more revenue generating ideas with you all and how we can diversify our revenue and not be so heavy on sales tax. So.
Well, and just, I think speaking to
that, yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
speaking to Shane's kind of contextual point, I think it's a valid thing for us to just acknowledge at this point a couple of things. One, town revenues have significantly increased year over year. Whole variety of reasons for that, right? Increase in sales tax, increase in property tax, collection of online sales tax.
Worth noting the numbers we just got.
Exactly. Our sales tax numbers for August are like pretty significant. I don't have them in front of me right now, but we just got sales tax numbers for August and they are percentage increase over last year, which was like pretty high. And then I think also acknowledging that increased revenue from grants. And so that's pretty significant what our staff has brought in as far as grant funding. Our projections for next year are $1.1 million. And like several years ago, we were talking about $100,000, $80,000, maybe $300,000. And now we're looking into a lot more. But when I look at this and I think like, okay, our expenditures are a good bit more than our revenues, that's not sustainable long-term. And so I think in thinking about the finance committee and how we plan for the future, regardless of just this budget, I'd really like to see us look at other revenue options, right? Like get creative. What are our other options to fund some of our really important priorities and projects? And then the other piece I was thinking about for this discussion as we go line by line is really like, I think I said this before, Sally, you reminded me of it the other day, is just making sure that we're always spending according to our priorities. I mean, we have certain things we have to spend money on, but we also have a whole variety of things that we have discretion on. And really thinking about the master plan, thinking about some of our big priorities. And because we have two things working for us, one, such increases in sales tax and revenue, and two, historic spending at the federal and state level for grants, we have a rare opportunity to knock out of the park some of our bigger priorities, our plans that have been sitting on the shelf, new plans we might have. So just for me, that's kind of the lens I'm approaching this is what's sustainable for the future, what's unique to this point in time for what money we can spend. And, you know, are all these line items, like, are we really kind of gut checking? Okay, again, we can just increase everything 10% every year or 30% every year, but just gut checking, is this really makes sense with our priorities and the community's vision? So that's my deal.
Tie it back to the master plan.
Yeah.
So how I'll go through the expenditures is kind of by chunks. So if you look at like, we start with the town board. That is up 1% from last year. And that increase is primarily in training and travel, where I've put extra training and travel to hopefully get some of the new board members up to speed and get them to CML as well. And then I did not address the idea of increased salaries here. So I think that's still a discussion we have. So, and I didn't feel like I had clear direction to put a number in.
Agreed.
By when do you need that? And what's our process for determining that as we go through this?
So I think how we left it was that I was going to do more research. So I still have to do that research and present it back. I do hope I know I had published a budget timeline, and I do hope to add maybe one more work session in there to talk about some of these items.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but this doesn't feel like one of our top,
Yeah.
So I was gonna say,
it's like a long-term policy discussion. We didn't have consensus. We did bat it around quite a bit, but it doesn't seem like we would change the pay for the trustees enough that it would really make that much of a difference. So I would say this is a bandwidth thing that requires research. Maybe we just continue to pause on this and it's not something you need to worry about.
I would agree, because it really feels more of a philosophical question than it does like, oh, I need more data to know what other communities do.
Yeah.
Sorry, Liv.
No, I was just saying, I think we should deprioritize it.
Cool. Let's clear the deck.
One thing off my plate. Municipal judge did not change from last year. Is the same. We did increase last year. We did increase the training and travel, organizational expense, basically. And that is carried on for 2024. Oh, I did want to mention in the town board line item as well, there is a nonprofit line item with currently $40,000 for the nonprofit requests and $10,000 for any kind of supplemental nonprofit requests that would come out. Kind of something we learned this year, that we'll still get those asks outside of this time.
Is there any way on our screen that we could share?
Oh yeah, let me share this. Oh my gosh, let me share this, please.
We're all looking at like page 35.
Yeah, let me.
Our audience members might appreciate like not just on your phone, and then and then again, it's such a long budget document that for people knowing what we're actually looking at.
Yeah. Got excited.
This is our most important policy doc.
It is.
Where's our
And I really want to apologize how it printed out. I'm still working on trying to learn this new one as I'm doing the budget, which is not ideal.
In future years, people will get to look at beautiful graphs and
We'll be able to go online and see this all themselves. It's really excited. I said join as a panelist. Oh, you know what?
Logged into the town.
I'm logged into the town. Hold on just one second. feel free to have,
I don't mean to slow us down, but I think it'd be useful.
So this is
Yeah.
really a worthwhile time. Yeah.
let me log out. Okay.
And as Gloria's pulling that up, I think a good clarification for folks as they look at year over year for the town board, just a reminder that the increase, it hasn't really increased. It's just that we put the nonprofit budget requests in the town board's budget. So
That's another thing we're trying to do is organize our accounts. And I thought after 2 years, I would have them organized, but I haven't been able to touch them yet. So we are still working on organizing those accounts. Okay, now I should be promoted. Excellent. Getting there. But this might be a fun way to talk it through with you all as we move down the line items. Eventually, the public will be able to see this too. Okay. So this is why I am, we've got everything separated out here and I'll kind of go through these if that works for you all. I have all my notes on here, so this is easier to kind of go through. All right, in the town administrator, for all personnel, we did a 1.5% COLA increase. And that is reflected here. That's also a policy decision. So it's been put in the budget, but is up for discussion as well. And then we go down to our health insurance increased 5% this year. And then we in the administrator, we increased the training. No, we didn't in this one. I guess I put my training back down. We did increase the training 50%. So it was 1,000 last year and I'm asking for 1,500 this year. And then a 500 travel stipend, hoping to go to CCCMA next year. And realize that the previous travel statement of 300 didn't get me very far. This year. And then the organizational dues were for CCCMA and ICMA, both professional organizations. I did not end up doing ICMA this year. I really just didn't have time and I had to evaluate that if we got a membership, I wouldn't be able to utilize it. So that's in there as well. And any questions on that?
We want to discuss or agree to support the 1.5% COLA adjustment. I guess that adjustment's already in COLA.
Yeah, I mean, I think federal COLA is a little more than that, right? It's fine for 1.5%.
Great. Going on down to partner organizations, and this is where you'll see some changes because we've taken nonprofit and partners and separated them out. So some might look like we've really decreased or really increased, and really what we've done is organized. And hopefully moving forward, we'll be able to organize more. So right now we have $26,664 in that partner organizations. We have the creative district has asked for 10,000. I have ski joring in there. They have not asked for 10,000. The regional planning commission asked for 5,000. That was from last year. So it was carried over to this year. And then San Juan Development Association has asked for 10,000, similar to their last year's ask. And then we pay into Region 9 Economic Development, and that's 1,600.
I was under the impression that Creative District was going to have a higher budget ask.
Oh, so this is the 10,000 that they asked for their operations. And then on top of that, further on down, we have a line item for summer sounds, which is 10,000 as well. So their total would be 20,000.
Got it.
And we budget actually a little bit more. We budget 10,700 and
Yeah, for summer.
something. Yeah, because the 700 actually goes to,
BMI for music license.
yes, the music licensing.
And they didn't ask for an increase this year.
They did not, they just went with the 10,000. I haven't gotten their official request yet. That's actually coming the next meeting. But I have talked with Lisa and that's kind of what they were thinking.
I was expecting 30, just from conversations with people in the creative district,
Okay.
but if it's 20, it's 20. That's better.
Well, yeah, this is carried over from last year right now, because that's what we gave them last year. So we'll see what we get this year. And yeah, they'll be presenting as just in the normal meeting, was the only time I could kind of get them in to present to you all. Any discussion on that?
On those on the creative district or partner organizations?
On either?
I guess I can save it for later.
All right, moving down to town clerk treasurer. We are. This is an increase, and so you'll see too, sometimes it doesn't make full sense of the 1.5%. We do a PTO payout, so every one of the salaries accounts for that PTO payout as well, and they can pay out up to 80 hours if they have 40 hours remaining in their base. So they might not use it, but it's budgeted for, is where we're at.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification for folks watching, because like if they're looking at this sheet and they're like, wait, you said you have a 1%, 1.5%.
And it doesn't quite add up. Yeah.
We're like, wait a minute, it's a 12% increase. But for folks recognizing health insurance has gone up 5%, we budget for a PTO payout, and we're talking about a 1.5% COLA increase. It's not talking about they're getting a 12% raise.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And if we look at services and other, we have our professional CPA marked at 40,000. We'll probably be using them quite a bit next year to try and help organize the accounts, but we will also be switching to a new CPA who is significantly cheaper than the current one that we're using and has already been able to help us out a little bit. So I'm anticipating that to be better. Training, I do want to send our clerk to the Cassell training and get her versed on that, because that's really the best bang for our buck. Bring this whole thing up. So overall, the town clerk treasurer personnel increased 6.4%. And then, we did include the ClearGov software in services and other, which is 13,000. It'll only be 10,000 the next year. This year's 13 because of the setup fee. And we were able to push that until 2024. Okay. Elections, we kept this line item the same after looking at our actuals right now. Something that I do want to do is include postage in here in the future. And it hasn't been charged here, but we have a line item for it. So we're going to be putting postage here in the future, which was a huge chunk of what we paid, and also meals as well, because we're feeding our election judges and stuff like that.
So the projected $5,000 from 2023, that doesn't include the postage and the.
Right, so I included that postage later on because it's currently in that line item. So it's just a matter of organization. Or lack thereof. Our finance administration, these are our bank charges. So if like you pay by credit card, we have to pay a certain percentage of that back to the credit card companies. And those have all predicted to be, to stay the same. If you see this, I've done a projection column on there as well. So the 2023 projection column, I looked through kind of where we're at year to date. And if we were getting close to our budget or something, I bumped it over, or if I knew we weren't going to spend that, I took that off. So I just wanted to explain that line item too. Like, so for example, legal services, I had put 50,000 in. I don't think we were going to spend the full 50,000. So I'm going back down to the 40,000 in 2024.
Is there any? We won't have our new code. Do we need to budget for anything differently with legal services as we move into a new code? Do you anticipate? Both with just more time with Clayton or consultation on that? Do you see that changing?
The code that, or the consultants that we chose for the code are attorneys themselves. So that really helps save us some of that money there.
Thank you.
Clayton's hourly rate isn't tripling. The 2020.
Right, Clayton?
On that.
We didn't budget for inflation?
I think this is where you'll see one of the largest increases, because we do. Hi, Clayton.
Hi, you guys. I mean, toss it around amongst yourselves. No, my rate is going to stay the same for 2024 for Silverton.
I mean, we're getting lots of comments about budgets going up with inflation, so I'm just.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks, Clayton.
I
I think
appreciate you thinking about me. I'll let you know well in advance before I do anything like that to you guys.
So in the planning, this is the most increase you'll probably see in all of the personnel budgets, because we do include the 79 or the consultants as well as the grant funded. So some of these positions are grant funded, but they go under planning.
Mhm.
So I wanted to warn you on that one. We're going to go open this. So looking at the housing coordinator position, that is grant funded and is accounted for in our revenues as well. But there is an increase for our community development coordinator to become a community development director, and use $8,000 of the Brownsfield grant to help supplement that increase in salary over the next 4 years. And then where you'll see that like larger increases in that services and other, we probably ended up spending about, oh, that shouldn't have stayed 85 there. Why did that go up? All right, so we're anticipating spending close to 90 on our CPS planning consultants, and what all the projects that we've actually gotten accomplished this year and are still in progress. Including the build out analysis, Shrine Hill, the development readiness assessment, and their GIS project that they're working on for us. So, and then part of that, I'll say 13,000 of that was grant funded through DOLA, but the rest we're fronting. So next year, okay, that's what I did. Okay, so next year I reduced that amount a little bit. Because I don't anticipate those larger projects happening with CPS. But then we do have the wetlands inventory to account for the $40,000 would be next year, while we'd pay 15 this year. And then the supplies haven't really changed, or the travel or the organizational dues or any of the rest of those line items there. They haven't changed since last year. All right. Slight increases with our audit service, looks like we'll be at 9,800. Treasurer fees, slight increase as well. Our engineering services, we're keeping at 15 for now. This might increase as we look at how far Clarion can get with our development standards update, and then we'll have to go to an engineer to finalize that development standards update. That's all pretty straightforward. I did notice that internet at town hall was higher than what we had budgeted for last year, so I increased that line item. Insurance, property insurance actually went down. We did really well on our audit this year, so we were given a discount.
Nice.
Yeah, good job. All right. And then this is the postage line item that was added here. Or no, it wasn't added. Hold on, let me just double check. No, we're still at 4,000. Okay. That is when I do want to increase based on our election, and I'll be putting that in the election.
So this line is the election postage, or it's just all town?
It's all town postage, and I'm trying to get them to
Separate.
separate them out. Yeah, because we're not even separating out right now for our bills
Billing,
with water
yeah.
and sewer, so that should be separated out as well.
Mm.
Now, water and sewer can't afford it right now, but we still should be separating it out.
Water and sewer can't afford to bill.
Right. And then this other in the general government was citizen engagement. We used that this year. We used $2,000 this year for the 2 engagement nights that we did. And as well as some of the like the smaller things that we've done around here. And then we're planning on kind of doing the same next year. Office supplies didn't change from last year. But looking at capital for machinery, furniture and fixtures, we do need a new town computer up here, one of them fried. And the way this works right now is that our accountant remotes in. So if we are running a meeting, she can't actually do any work, or if we're using this computer at all. So we're going to need a new desktop for that. Okay, we'll go down to our visitor center operations, slight change, 3.15% increase. Chamber contracts the same. I think I increased, what did I do? Custodial and Bob John's both getting, they both get coded right there, which is hopefully I want to separate those in the future. But we do anticipate an increase based on the actuals that we have. So we have that Bob's John, or we have the porta potty outside of the visitor center that helps with ADA accessibility. All right.
And what about the bathrooms that we purchased during the construction of an EC? What's
Yes.
happening with those?
So we've talked to the finance committee about these as well, and it's really hard to set them up and take them down and put them into, like, as far as to put them, we don't have a holding tank for it right now. So it all has to be put into like a tap right now.
Connect the towns.
And so this year, it took 3 guys about 2 weeks to set it up fully, which is just not a great use of our time. So we're looking at selling it.
Okay, so that's my actual question is if that comes up, if that can be, if they are sold, because that was the original intent, I think, if I remember that process correctly.
Yeah, and they have proven to be not as durable as we had hoped. So we've replaced pretty much everything on them after one winter on the inside.
Bathrooms for sale.
We are getting a quote from the manufacturer, how much he would offer us, and then we'll put it out for the community if they wanted to purchase.
A trade-in program.
Yeah,
Especially anyone who's just heard us say that.
I know, it just didn't.
That was not,
It
Way to sell it, Gloria. Way to sell it.
didn't work the way I thought it was gonna work.
a good idea.
It's all the problem.
Uh-huh.
It did solve a problem, and we'll be able to make some money back on it. Okay, moving to the modular operation. So this is the senior center here. We go to. We put $1,000 in to help create some kind of pocket park feel around the Grow Dome Center there, and just broke out their internet. We do pay for the internet, electricity, and propane for the senior center.
I recently received some very nice feedback about the Grow Dome.
Oh, excellent.
Keeps growing it quite a bit.
All right, so here we go. So in town hall operations, this one went up a little because we do need to, well, first I'll start with cleaning services. We're anticipating an increase in cleaning services for all the buildings, and looking at going out for an RFP so that we can include Anisi Park as well. And if you can see this line item here, disposal, that's an area that I'll probably add in 2024 to account for each of the dumpsters that we have for each facility. So we pay about $16,800 for each dumpster per facility, which is currently all in the refuse fund right now. But if and when we reabsorb the refuse fund into the general fund, that line item will be used.
Does the town hall, does this include any repairs and maintenance?
Yes, so repairs and maintenance includes the front steps and painting on the outside, and then a roof repair. It leaks at the very top of the atrium, so we are needing a repair there.
And $5,000, is that how close of it? Roof repair just to me sounds like more than $5,000, so.
We're hoping it's an easier fix. I mean, it's where the glass comes into it's where the glass meets the roof, so hopefully.
Caulking.
Yes, hopefully it's an easier fix, but we are gonna have to contract out for that one. These are carried over from last year. Software upgrades, $1,000, and furniture and fixtures, $1,000. And that can also eat into if we do go over our repairs and maintenance budget. Right. Grant expenditures. I included all the grants that we've been awarded, so now wanting to kind of keep tabs on all of those. And everything in this grant section is accounted for in our revenues as well. So it does balance out. Brownsfield, we estimated $300,000 spend down next year. It will likely be less. Maybe, we'll see. Law enforcement was the same as previous years for right now until we get an updated budget from the sheriff.
Was your guys' understanding from the town and county discussion that it would be $100,000 potential addition to each of our budgets, or $100,000 total? So 50 each.
I asked Willie about that when he mentioned it to me right here, and he said 60-40.
Okay.
So we'd see the
So-
number go from 300 to 346 or 366. Which one's the 60 and which one's,
Oh, we're the 60.
we're looking at like 366.
Yeah. But then he also mentioned inflation on other items, so I'm not sure what's like.
Maybe like that 100,000 is really like 1/3.
For us, it's more,
We won't know till we know.
We won't know.
Yeah.
This one is fire protection services is a mistake of the 79. I didn't know that I had to reorganize everything and remembered that the pension and the escrow are both accounted for in our IGA with the county. So technically those funds go straight to the county. So this line item should reflect their actual budget that was asked for, which was 54,000. Let me find it. Now I got everything pulled up here. Where is it? Do you all have that memo I sent out earlier?
The 2023 budget was 41,900. And in 2023, they requested 54,750.
54,750 is what I would suggest putting here until we discuss if that's where we want to go with it. And
Is this the time for that discussion, or isn't it, is that what we're doing right now?
yeah, I mean, as we go through line items, we can discuss it, or if you'd like me to put it as an agenda item, we can do that as well.
And so far, we've been discussing anything else that was discussable.
And just to clarify, the 71,900 from last year did not include the pension or the escrow, but did include the amount we had allocated for fireworks or whatever budget increases they wanted to spend.
That is correct.
We didn't get to have this conversation with the county, but Gloria and I were talking about, clarify me if I'm wrong, Gloria, because I'm trying to keep track of how the sales tax is collected. But if there are ways to discuss with the county on how the escrow is funded. Again, we didn't really get into that with our colleagues, but did you have any more to add there of what we're talking about based on the emergency sales tax being collected and kind of retained?
Yeah, they have had an increase in their emergency sales tax, just because all of our taxes have increased in our revenue. So maybe re-looking at how we negotiate our fire pension and our fire protection escrow with the county. Traditionally, we've always done the 20 or the 15,000 for the pension, and the fire was 10,000
For the escrow.
Yeah, and that's split 50-50. But they see a lot more money in their emergency services fund, so. Just a thought.
We prepaid our pension for this.
We might have prepaid our pension. So it looks like there was some confusion when we, last year, the motion was to increase the 2022 budget by 19,000. And that was allocating the fireworks budget over, we had a fireworks line item. And putting that into the fire authority's budget. And it looks like we might have paid them the 19,000 as well as that 15,000. So we are working on that now. We just discovered that, so.
Yeah. Well, and it seems like for context, if I remember correctly, what we talked about last year was there was a change in the kind of fireworks service show cost and the fire department budget. And the conversation we all had was, we'll just increase your budget by this amount and you guys can spend it how you see fit. And that, if you have operational increases, you spend it how you want and you distribute it how you want. So that's the context for where we got to the 71,900 number last year, is really giving them discretion on their priorities for budgeting.
Yeah, and they did not include the budget this year for fireworks. If the town wanted to do fireworks, it would be 23,000. That's what they would offer.
Right, the 50
for their product we would offer.
operational budget, does it?
But the idea of funding it last year, the way we did it was that the town didn't have to make an annual decision about fireworks specifically. Correct me if I'm wrong. The idea was that we would fund the fire department at our increased rate. That would just stay the same. And then that amount then becomes what the fire department has to work with to have as big a fireworks show or as small as a fireworks show as needed. So why are we talking about fireworks this year?
I don't think we should be. I mean, I remember the
Okay.
same thing, except that we told them last year, don't come back and ask us for money again. We'll increase your budget by $23,000 relative to your 2023 budget indefinitely. And you can spend that however you want, but we're telling you now, this is a year ago, that you have a year to raise money if it's going to cost more for fireworks in the future. And so I did not vote to support paying for fireworks last year. I voted to support increasing the fire department's discretionary budget by $23,000. And I continue to support that budget allocation, but I continue to not support making a decision for the town to directly spend money on fireworks, even though this year's fireworks were amazing.
Right, I think the intent was really to leave it up to the fire authority to set the priorities.
And they have requested if you still would like to continue that, that we would break it out, break the fireworks out
Which I won't. I'll vote.
from their operating.
I just think
budget.
it puts the town in such a sticky situation, it seems like year in and year out, where it's like the discussion of the budgeting of the fireworks means that then the town is kind of responsible for the awesomeness of the show or something, or the lack thereof. And that just has creates so much tension and so much struggle. And I liked the solution last year of funding the general budget and then allowing that to land on the people who actually have to put on the show and decide, what their capacity is and what their volunteer and staff resources look like. And then it's not on the town to look at capacity decisions, which we wouldn't have any sense of.
One thing that came up in the finance committee meeting, and then I had a conversation with Chief Archuleta about, they had a preference that if the town is going to fund them to, it's not super typical for a fireworks product to be a line item in a fire authority's budget. So their request to us was, if we are going to fund them in a certain way for the fireworks show, to put that funding towards Friends of the Fire Department as a 501c3. So that could be fine. But I think what this board is talking about now is just the overall request being a certain amount that was similar to last year. And if some of that needs to go to the Friends of the Fire Department or some of it goes to the fire authority, that we could figure that out. But that was one concern that they brought up to us, is that having firework product in their operational budget was not necessarily something they could.
Same for us.
Yeah.
Same problem. I don't know, I'm still comfortable with the 77,750. I think that their increase from 49,900 to 54,750 sounded reasonable based on what Chief Archuleta explained as increased costs for, they have 6 new members, they have more equipment, things cost more, $5,000 sounds fine. I'm still comfortable with the $23,000 discretionary budget. I think we already prepaid the 15K of contribution. We have another 10K under the IGA. And so our total contribution in the fire department, I think in this budget should be 87,750, which is still a big number. Broken out by 54,750 for their operating budget, 23,000 for discretionary, and 10,000 remaining under the IGA. And I don't want to have any conversations about fireworks. Be asked to contribute more money for the 4th of July. That's just my opinion.
No, I'm trying to think of how the numbers add up, because then we're still getting to, if we think about, Okay, wait, say your numbers again, Shane.
So accepting their 2024 budget request of 54,750 for operations, which is roughly a $5,000 increase. Continuing to fund the $23,000 discretionary amount, which was the quote for fireworks last year. But if they feel like they want to increase recruitment and put that towards pensions or something or equipment, and that fireworks is either untenable or not the right investment, they can decide to do that or not. But that's 23. And then we have another 25,000 under the IGA that we always contribute, which goes towards their escrow and their pension. But we've already paid 15K of that by accident
Oh,
ahead of time.
Yeah. But if we add up 20, if we add up the 54 plus 23 discretionary amount,
77,750,
yeah, plus the IGA,
which is 10
minus
remaining.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a big number.
it's still a significant increase.
So it's only a $5,000 increase to last year.
Right, but last year they budgeted for some of their increase within the discretionary spending, yeah. I think that makes sense. I still would be interested in the discussions with the county around the escrow and the pension. Just again, considering that they've realized more revenue.
Coming out of an
On
emergency
the-
fund.
Yeah, like that was kind of the intent of that fund, and so the town and county splitting that 50-50 feels a little off. Again, we didn't get into that today in our meeting. We were very level, but is that something we can have a discussion about? Okay.
That's funding ambulance, fire, our emergency.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to think about that fund and how it's allocated.
Office of Emergency Management.
Yeah. Okay.
I think some goes to the sheriff, but I'm not sure.
Or like how accessing funds from the emergency account to address fire department escrow would affect the other requests that are being made of, I'm sure that search and rescue is also seeing increase in, I mean, Tyler's not here tonight. Search and rescue is seeing increases. So across the board, I just want to note that we should take stock of what that account is, what's being drawn on that account.
Right, and what that fund balance is.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a larger question I have, and maybe that's valuable for a joint work session in the future, like we talked about today, is just kind of knowing. I don't think we've had a really good conversation around emergency services, what's in that fund, what the balance is. I mean, I know the county has the documents, they're in the meeting. I haven't looked at the PDF in a long time because we have very long meetings ourselves. But being able to know what's in that fund, what is anticipated for spending, yeah. And taking stock post-COVID and also post the sales tax revenue that we've seen continue to go up.
Mhm.
Am I mistaken? Have we always been, or how long have we been contributing 25K through the IGA for pension and escrow?
I have numbers dating back to 2018, but I could look further if needed.
Okay. So, but agreeing to that 25 this year wouldn't be any different than last year.
Correct. That's what we,
So based on what I was proposing, the only difference is the 5,000-ish increase in their operating budget,
yes.
Mhm.
which is, I think, what I said I would do a year ago.
Well, I guess the main question is, last year we had the conversation that we expect that we'll increase your amount of discretionary spending by this amount. You can spend it on fireworks show, training, equipment, whatever. Here, we're having the conversation that we will still fund the increase and the discretionary amount, as opposed to taking that out of the discretionary amount.
Saying their operating budget increase needs to go into the 23.
Right. I mean, we're kind of quibbling over nickels here.
I think the bigger issue is if they choose not to do the fireworks, and we give them the 23. Then we would have a conversation next year about further increases in budget, because then they have a $18,000 surplus for operations.
Right.
But as long as they keep doing the fireworks, then it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay more for fireworks either.
Right. Well, I think it goes back to the larger conversation about shared services, because the budget in front of us this year is only up 10 or 11%. But from 2022, it's up 30%. From 2021, it's up 46%. The sheriff's budget, like if we keep going back historically, it's like, wow, that's interesting. And, that's the case for a lot of these line items. And I just think as we're going through line by line, and Gloria is able to like drill down, it's worth with some of these contract services or partners or whatever to kind of have the conversation around, okay, yes, inflation, and what else? Like, let's actually have the conversation around services provided, budget changes year to year.
And I don't want to get super off track, but I want to say a philosophical thing to think about as we're looking at the budget is as our budget increases and we look to additional revenue for the town, if it's not tourist revenue or services revenue, it's or like new services revenue, and it's from increasing taxes, water charges, trash charges, we're increasing our cost of living, which has a trickle down effect to also making this a less affordable place to live and only attracting wealthy people. So everybody that asks us for increased budgets every year, at some point, we will get to a point where we're impacting our affordability. But I agree with your bigger point that it all adds up, but there's a balance.
And that's a super important conversation, I think, as we think about revenue, is if we're looking for new sources of revenue, what's generating it and how to make it come from the places that further master plan priorities, further what we want to be as a community, as opposed to like, taxing the little man.
So
I think this
section-
through.
So where are we trying to pull out the direction from all that?
Do we want to make any changes to the fire department's line item?
I liked how we did it last year, and it seemed like we came to a good conclusion last year. And kind of the continuation of that makes sense to me. With the increase that
5,000 increase.
I'm not gonna spell $5,000.
No.
Yeah.
Is that consensus?
Direction is marked on.
Okay,
Next.
Great.
all right.
That was a much shorter conversation than years past. That's pretty good.
For the carriage house, this is where we have other professional, and we have taken over our drug testing back from the county. The county has traditionally hosted it for the last, since I started. And we've taken that back over. So that's going to be $400 a year for the drug testing. And that was driven by me just so I could have more control over the reports and being able to give that to CDOT when they ask.
Mhm.
And then maintenance supplies, we did add to this line item because we do anticipate some additional maintenance there. This is really cool. It gives you, this is based on our 5-year actuals. So sometimes we go on the, gives me little notes on the side. Exciting. Anyways, nice feature. Thanks. I'll show you guys more. Okay, going on to building inspector. We have kept in the building inspector line item, the fire inspector. Bill has agreed to be with us for another year until Bevan can get his fire all of his fire certifications, really. So we have those line items here, increase 1 point. Yeah, increases. What was, yeah. The COLA increase has been applied to the fire and code officer, but not the fire inspector. And then the same thing as far as health insurance goes up. Training and travel is the same as this year. We're budgeting again to take those tests. So it didn't happen this year, but maybe next year, hopefully next year. And then supplies is the same as last year as well. Public Works personnel. We've got the regular employees. We've added an employee here, and that's where this 20% increase came in. So we would have another employee. They're all broken down here. And they would be the billing and compliance specialist. And then I did add a part-time seasonal employees because we did use some part-time seasonal employees this year and we haven't in the past. So I did put a 15,000 and that could be reduced. But I wanted to put a placeholder there just in case, because we have gone out for part-time employees, especially with all of the snow removal that we had last year. So that's an area we can talk about if needed. And then travel, $500. That was reduced from the from the $100 just, or from the $1,000 just because it really wasn't used in this last year and I didn't see it used next year. This is street maintenance. You'll see a significant increase here. I think this winter was probably one of the worst winters we've had in a long time. So the amount of other professional we used, the time we used. So John and I have been kind of strategizing if we have another really big winter like that, what would we do? And instead of going out for contracted services, we would just plan on renting equipment and doing it ourselves. But if we could reserve that equipment now to rent, or at least kind of help budget for that. So that's where these increases have really gone to, is thinking about doing that. Let's see. Oh, so this is the loader for 3 months, potential rental of a loader for 3 months. And that would be 20 grand, but would be significantly cheaper than I think we spent close to 30 to 40 grand on contractors. And then we are going to go back with the fire department for street washing. They gave me a quote of 4,500. So doing that next year with the fire department. This is some significant increases here. Not sure it'll all be used, but we want to plan for the worst winter possible. One thing here in the clothing allowance, we have to separate this out. So half of this actually goes to Parks and Recreation. And then half goes to the Public Works. Operating supplies. Capital, we didn't use much of our machinery or equipment. We would put $40,000 in there to potentially maybe buy a new truck. We really need a new truck. And hopefully 2 new trucks would be the goal, but CDOT did not have their auction this year. So we're leaving that in for next year. And then there is a placeholder in here for our Blair Street, 222,900. that we committed as a grant match. Facilities and Parks Administration, we've got our regular employees, and then we have our part-time seasonal staff employees. The reason why part-time seasonal says it's a huge increase is because it hasn't been broken out in the past, and now I'm trying to keep it broken out. So it's going to be organized this year. But that one actually saw a little bit of a decrease, mostly because of, we didn't account for a COLA raise for the FPR director. We're keeping that the same. And actually today was the last day to apply for that. So we do have a lot of candidates. It's really exciting. And then, yeah, that's really where that came from. Sorry, I'm starting to lose myself here. Oh, and we did shift over to part-time seasonal staff. So you'll see that there's like a Kendall lead and a Parks and Buildings lead. So that's seasonal staff coming in, but not necessarily a full-time position. Potentially, if one person wanted to do both, but we haven't found one person that would want to lead both. Oh, you're not getting that message, just me. And the reduction really can be seen in the health and life insurance and the retirement, because whoever we hire, it'll take three months, or sorry. It's been a long day. What's our waiting period? 3 months, 90 days.
Yeah.
Until they would be eligible for those benefits. And then retirement, it's actually a year. So those went down. And there's training. As this, I anticipated more training. I would like to send a Parks and Rec representative to a conference to try and get some more context and get them excited about the position and network. Park maintenance went down mostly because we're not paying for Columbine Park. We had a $200,000 line item there. We took that away. And we don't put the loan expense here. It goes into our finances, or our financial debt, basically.
And do we anticipate that for park maintenance, that number is enough for whatever repairs or stuff we have planned?
Potentially.
Yeah. Some stuff in the Kendall Mountain Ski area is separate. We've budgeted.
Yeah, that's separate. So this would be thinking about Memorial Park, the gazebo, the bathrooms.
Visitor center.
Typically that goes in the visitor center line item, but ballpark, if for like the baseball fields.
I guess I'm just wondering if we're expecting the hiring of a new position, could this director position have new feedback on like budget priorities?
Yeah, and so last year we budgeted 9,000. I bumped it up to 12, just anticipating them just getting to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Going down to Kendall Mountain Ski Area. Let's see. Where are some of the things? Oh, we will be receiving either a refund or a tax credit for almost $20,000 for a KMRA sales tax. So that will be coming in. So I took away the expense line item because we don't have to pay it. They were automatically charging us for lodging tax for years. I don't even want to admit how long.
But in this budget is the deck and the steps for Kendall.
Yes, yes. So if you can see the capital here, is improvements other than buildings. That's 175,000. That's carried over from this year. We budgeted that and we're putting it over into steps. Events and communications went up because we're talking about our 150th anniversary. And we do have another personnel in events and communications. So Nathan would be overseeing the Anisi Park attendant.
And this 140,000 includes the Anisi Park attendant budget for a season, right?
Yes.
Let's break that one out for a second.
Yes.
Sorry, I lost it kind of in the budget here, but in the 150th anniversary Anisi Park, can you go through what you're thinking with that?
Sure. Actually have the director right here to talk through it.
Hi, guys.
Or yeah, Nathan, sorry.
Share.
So, the actual anniversary is going to be on September 14th, 2024. We're going to be doing a large scale event, partnering with the Silverton Creative District to culminate a year's worth of events. So we're having, it's perfect timing, our Summer Sounds concert, as well as a potential bonus concert, a festival during the day, ending hopefully with a fireworks show, as well as more Silverton Cruise and carnivals that weekend. Leading up to it, every event that comes through Silverton will slap on our 150th logo, have additional support from myself and my staff, if approved. And we will help promote their event, market their events, just create more interest in existing events that we do have. We also want to bring back additional events, which is why I have an increase in travel and marketing budgets to facilitate events such as the locals only train. We have not had that in quite a few years. I know many locals have not ridden the train yet. So we want to facilitate that. We also will need the increase in operating supplies to replace the aging supplies that we do have currently in existence. And we are going to be using the marketing budget as well for our creative crackerjack graphic designer, Gina. She's helping us with the logos and the marketing. We are going to focus on the Four Corners region. And this is a step into the Colorado 150th anniversary coming up in 2026. So we are going to try and market the two together as well. And I'm working with Al Harbour and the state committee as well.
Okay, so okay, I think this is actually back in the chart. So for the 150th anniversary, as its own thing, is that like a $30,000? Did I see it?
So I put all the increases over.
There, 24,768.
I added those up.
And that is the total increase for the entirety of my budget, not just including the 150th.
Can you break out how much the 150th
Yeah.
is?
We are asking for an increase in $4,500 for the 150th fireworks. The marketing budget is going to be difficult because I'm changing up the marketing plan for this year. I had one Facebook post for a wedding. We had a Kindle have more interest than any of the print marketing that we've done in the past 5 years, all within 1 week. So we are rearranging that. I don't have that exact breakdown for you as of yet. If you would like that, I will work on that. The operating supplies itself is going to be between snowscapes, 4th of July, any town sponsored events. So that is evenly distributed. But I would say for the operating supplies with the $10,000 increase, I can expect at least half of it to go towards the 150th events throughout the year.
This is the first one we've talked about that I feel like has a really direct correlation to the revenue generated over at Kendall or other similar potential sources. How much getting an increase in revenue from Kendall next year, which might help balance this increase?
So this year I'm gonna switch over to revenue real quick so I can show you all while I talk.
We're getting close to the end.
I know, I'm sorry, I should have always do. I'm regretting this like the whole time. I'm like, I should have put this first. We're getting there.
You must sit through a budget.
It's right, yeah, okay. Our agenda always does new business first. Apologies.
We're predicting a 33% increase over 2023 budget. So we budgeted 30,000 in lift tickets. This year we received 42,000. And next year we're budgeting for 40,000.
Specifically like the event.
Oh, the events. Okay. The event revenue for Kendall, so let's see, we got 15,000 we budgeted this year. We're looking at 15,000 and next year about 20,000.
I think with the deck and everything, whenever, I mean, depending on
And it's
completion of that.
the deck done, we would like to increase the fees for that. But we have been holding off until we have big completed building.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Unfortunately, I can't increase my fees for that without a deck.
Was it $1,500 for a weekend or something?
For it is a sliding scale during a peak weekend. It's $1,250 for 3 days. Peak weekdays is $500 less. Winter is significantly less as well.
Okay. I think if you're going to launch a marketing campaign, like a digital marketing campaign around weddings there, that number can, well, especially once the deck is done.
And we have recently rebranded Kindle for Kindle Mountain instead of Ski Kindle or Kindle Weddings. We're focusing on it as a whole and separating out for the lodge as well.
Thank you for jumping over to revenue. But the answer is not a huge increase on the revenue side this year, but it's an increase on the expenditure, but maybe it'll catch up.
And I'm reticent to increase. We made 42,000 this year. It was a perfect year for it. You know, we had great snow. Everything worked. I don't really want to predict more than 40.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's come into this revenue generation
Yeah.
of its life. This is a really very notable.
I would like to do a shameless plug. If you notice the new merchandise I'm wearing, we just received that from Kindle Mountain here, with our new logo on it. They are available downstairs until we open up the lift shack.
Did you get one, Lucy? Did you get one?
I got one. Okay.
I think for me, when we're talking about an EC Park, I am super open to staffing it for a year and then kind of seeing, like, I know it just feels like there's a lot in flux with the visitor center and how we want to operate that. We have no idea what an EC Park is going to look like for staffing. You know, I'm not sure when we decided to build it, if we all knew we were committing to staff it indefinitely. So I just think having a conversation around how we staff our visitor experience going forward. And I know the chamber's working on a strategic plan. So I don't have a problem committing to fund it this year. But I just think kind of keeping that conversation open around those two relationships and what that staffing looks like in the future. That's me. That's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, and I was just looking at the chart only. So on where it says 150th anniversary, 24,000. Really just being intentional and thoughtful about what the outcome is that we desire. Is this a marketing, is this marketing for our regional communities? Is this an event for our locals? Like, it doesn't have a priority listed here. I'm not saying that's, a no-go for me, but it is a significant amount of money that I think it's worth looking at how we're folding that into the master plan and community priorities in a way that's just very intentional.
And I think I could have put master plan there as well, because it does say bringing back events like that. So
I think civic engagement
there,
yeah, I just want us to be intentional as we talk about that amount and think about that we have a lot of demands. We're going to get into this point in our budget discussions where we have to try and get down $70,000 to $100,000 or whatever the number was at the outset there. And I guess my way of thinking a lot of times about how we're spending money in the budget generally is, is it an essential service? Is it related to infrastructure and general municipal functioning? Is it a priority identified in the master plan? So, we've kind of had I don't need to rehash the philosophical discussion at 8:30 tonight, but I just want that to be noted at this point. Next.
Noted.
next.
Thank you.
Okay, next or next?
Next.
Oh, I said next.
I did put $25,000 as part of the perimeter trail capital improvements that we started last year. So that is still in there for this next year.
And is that enough? Like, this seems like something we're kind of all in. We have an RFP, we have Lisa's doing the work on it. I've been identified as a priority.
Community provided input.
Community has provided input.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just want to make sure, like, as we look at this, that the things that we've committed to, we can execute in a high quality way.
So the plan with that was to, right now we have 50,000 in that line item. That one that is a capital improvement, so that increases every year if we contribute to it. And getting to the point where we either have enough money for a match. We're really looking at those bridges that we're going to need.
Right.
And if we can match funds for bridges, that's really where the bulk of those funds, roughing in the trail won't be as much as, 50,000, but if we have 50,000 for a match for a bridge, that's where we can really capitalize on this money.
Okay.
All right. And now, going into our capital expenses, these aren't really like up for debate.
Right.
I already can.
Yeah. Let's carry. Yeah. Carry on.
This are financing costs are for Anisi Park and operating transfers out.
Yeah. And then transfers to the library, we have at 130,000. And that concludes our expenditures in the general fund.
So the next iteration of going through the budget, let's go through revenue.
Okay.
Seating and any open for discussion line items on expenditures.
Okay.
And at some point we have the nonprofit and we have people come in and make requests and that sort of thing happening, right? That's not appearing right.
We do have $50,000 allocated.
Budgeted for. Yep. I know. I just remember that being
Really hard.
Yeah.
So this is orienting us all to what we have in there right now.
Right.
So based on what we've seen, do we have more questions at this moment? Or are we comfortable making a motion
And I don't know if we need a formal motion. So this is for the state to know that I presented by the 11th. I want to say I'm a little early. For the record.
Normally, this is a special meeting on the 11th.
Right,
Right.
exactly. We're not doing this special meeting on the.
But thank you for joining us for this exciting occasion.
So we'll be, you can, I mean, a motion to approve or just, if you don't have to adopt this one because we're not adopting one until December. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Is there any significance to us approving this draft budget as presented? Next.
Actually, I don't even think we do need a motion. I looked through all the statutes and I couldn't find a motion.
Great.
Budget presented next.
Yep. And
For that thorough walkthrough of expenses as well. That was super helpful.
Yeah.
sorry, I got a little loopy towards the end.
And to the public, stay tuned. The online version will just get better and better.
Yes. Yes. The president, and if you have any questions or you can't read what's printed out, I'm happy to print it out in a bigger font or just come by town hall and I'm happy to do that. I love it when citizens ask budget.
Great. So now we can tune into our hostages. The next item is new business 4B, Silverton Historic Review Committee member selection.
Party time.
And just right off the bat, thank you very much for wanting to contribute. It's super awesome. It's nice to see applicants for these committees. They're really,
Didn't you guys have a public hearing?
I was gonna say, do we have to close the public hearing for the?
oh, because that was a public hearing. That's why we needed.
Look
a motion.
But can we also need any public, if anybody's listening, there's comment on this?
Public comment is
It was just the beginning. Yeah.
portion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a decision for our public hearing? Is there a motion to accept the budget as presented, subject to the remaining presentations that we're gonna see?
You gotta live.
Sally had it.
A second. Do we have a second? Yeah. Cool. Jordan seconded. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierma,
Yes.
trustee George is absent, Mayor Pro Tem Kenny,
Yes.
Mayor Furman.
Yes. Thanks, Justin. Really likes being a hostage. Okay, so now we will move on to new business 4B, Silverton Historic Review Committee member selection. Gloria, do you want to walk through?
I'm gonna
Oh,
turn off to Lucy.
Lucy.
Finish my
Gloria is going to eat dinner.
Enjoy. Okay, in pursuit of CL certified local government status, the town is reestablishing the Historic Review Committee. Earlier this year, you all adopted ordinance 2308, which established the selection criteria for this committee. So according to that, the Historic Review Committee shall consist of a non-voting staff member, a non-voting high school member when available. There are none available at this time. And then 5 voting members to fit the following roles. A member of the Board of Trustees that will be filled by Shane. A member of the Planning Commission, which will be, I'm requesting that the trustees allow that position to be nominated at the October 18th meeting, and then we'll confirm that following. The Planning Commission has not met in a few months. And then a year-round resident of the town who owns property within the historic district, a year-round resident of the town at large, and a historical society member. I'm requesting that the board appoint the remaining 3 members of the committee with this criteria in mind. The town must show its best effort to appoint at least 2 voting members with experience in historic preservation. And so the Planning Commission member can qualify as they have experience on a historic review committee previously. Additionally, Maria and Mike Gariak also listed experience. When making a selection, I request that you keep in mind our goals of historic preservation as well as those goals outlined in the master plan and trustee priorities. These members selected will play a large role in achieving CLG status, as well as hopefully updating Historic Overlay District Design Standards and Regulations. I've received 4 awesome applications from Mike Garriak, Jesse Rowe, David Pollitt, and Maria Samoria. She cannot be here tonight because she just had knee surgery, so she couldn't make it here. But she assured me she'd be able to go to the first meeting on October 18th. So I was thinking the best way to do this would be to appoint members as they qualify. So if you review your agenda memo, those positions are listed with the qualifying applicants. And if it's okay with you, I was thinking it would be beneficial for the applicants to have a minute or 2 to speak on why they want to serve.
And just to clarify, it seems like Maria is the only one who's from the Historical Society, so she's.
Yeah, I would recommend appointing her.
Well,
Wasn't that?
David also is a voting member of the Historic Society.
Oh, David, you are as well?
Yes, but probably less experience than Maria.
Gotcha. Okay, I just wasn't, I was not aware of that, because if she was the only one and that's a requirement, then she would have been appointed automatically.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. Yes, so those 2 are members of the Historical Society.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like of the 4 applicants, we have 3 positions.
Yes, which is great.
Way to have
Exciting.
Thank you.
fun check.
Great. So we can just go down the list. Mike, if you want to start. And just do maybe. Just yours up. I was just.
Lucky day.
Do we want to set a 3-minute timer?
Got it.
Okay, great.
Well, now, hello, everyone. To Mr. Mayor, the council, other guests, and possible good neighbors. Neighbors right here, 2 good neighbors right here. So that's a good start, I'd say. Does anybody know who I am? I say that because, I know it sounds like a little bragging. I got my name on a building. And so I said, maybe people might actually know who I am. That's not bragging. I worked for that. Now let's get down to business. I know that most historical organizations are sometimes seen as just another thing that someone has to go through if they're building something, remodeling something. And they almost see us as kind of like, not exactly bad guys, but something that they'd have to go through. Oh, gee, I have to go through another committee or something. I understand that. However, I think if you're a member of any type of historical organization of any kind that has a little bit of say-so or recommendations or so, you have to be open to all different types of views from different people coming in and say, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to pay attention to these things? Well, I've only been here 50 years. I've learned a few things in the 50 years, and I'm glad to say I've learned it from a lot of people that that I respect highly. Fritz Klinke has given me a lot of great advice over the years. And when Alan Nosserman was around, boy, did I listen. I shut my mouth and I listened, because that man was a walking encyclopedia of historical facts and things about Silverton and the whole Four Corners area, as a matter of fact. And then, of course, we have Bev Rich, and I've gotten along very well with Bev. Let me do a little self-promoting here. I was in the Blair Street Historic District Association. I was a founder of the association, a past vice president and president for many years of the Blair Street Historic District Association. myself and Bev worked very well together. So trying to keep things in perspective as far as the history of Silverton goes. Now, I like everything that's going on now, everything with the recreation and the skiing and the climbing and this, that. We need it all. I love it all. We need it all. I like it. However, we have to have the basis of the town, a historical town, to me is extremely important, extremely important. No matter what happens here tonight, so as far as your choices go, I'm going to continue to be involved in anything historic, even when it's past my favorite street, notorious Blair Street. So the way I see it is we have a duty to keep history alive in Silverton. There's probably more people that come in that know the history of Silverton and want to see it firsthand. If they're coming in on a train, what I'd like to see is a seamless type of operation where they come in on a beautiful historic train, and I'm looking at that man right there. He had a lot to do with it. So you come in on, I'm just talking about the train now. You come in on a train, I want a seamless type of thing to happen. When people get off the train, they get off the historic train. I want them to come into that historic town, seamless, one step to the next. This is why I believe I call it historic value. It's not a historic correctness or anything else. We know that people are going to be asking questions, and that's another thing. I think any type of historic organization should not be a punishment to anyone. Oh, we have to go through another committee or something. No, it shouldn't be a punishment. It should be something that actually helps those people. When they come to a committee and say, what do I have to do? I say, well, what do you want to do? And let's work together on this, and let's be cooperative in our operation. So this way we're helpful to people who want to do the right thing, and we're going to try to steer them in a direction to do the right thing. Right? We're going to give them suggestions. We're going to give them priorities.
Closing statement.
Yes. Thank you. Glad because I could talk. I see the history of Silverton as important to the town. We need to preserve it. We need to promote it, and we need to support it every chance we get. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So to be fair, we'll do a loose 3 for everybody else. I said to be fair, we'll do a loose 3 minutes for everybody else. I won't cut anybody off.
Jesse, if you wanna speak.
Mine might be under 3. I don't know if I could, well, I probably could talk for 3 minutes. I had 26 questions about the budget, and I didn't ask them because I knew that you were going to go through it line by line. So I could talk about that for 3 minutes. Sorry, I'm rambling. As many of you know, I am one of the candidates who lives in the historic overlay district, which is one of the requirements. And also, as many of you all know, we have recently undergone a major renovation of our building, which is still, of course, in process. And our experience with the historic overlay district, while positive and full of fantastic people, was a bit fraught with confusion and conflicting rules, we found. And so I am a big believer in, if something is broken, don't complain about it, roll up your sleeves and volunteer to help fix it. So that's why I'm here tonight. I think one thing that we have as a priority in town is affordable housing. And my mom's a real estate attorney. I read dense documents at work. There are over 2,000 pages available to read to someone.
who's trying to do something to their building in the overlay district, between the builder's handbook, between official and unofficial published things. And for me personally, I would like to see that process become accessible, whether you have an attorney available or what resources you have available. I think it should be a clear and streamlined process. I believe in historic preservation. I have had the pleasure of owning a number of historic buildings now as an adult, and I think we have an asset here to preserve in Silverton, but that preservation doesn't have to come with a social stratification element. So I would like to help from that perspective. And I know most of you, so I, like Mike does. So I guess I would take any questions if you all want to do questions of us.
How do we?
Question kind of for everybody.
Let's
Save that. Just save it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's my interest in serving. And I think I would just say that having a diversity of perspectives and agendas on the committee would be great. And I love that Mike and I don't always agree, but we're neighbors. And, you know, for example, if we were on the committee, I'm sure we would have some spirited debate, for example. So thank you all for your service and for considering me.
Thank you.
She's a great neighbor. No matter what.
That's saying something because she has a giant dumpster in front of her house.
It's an architectural recycling dumpster.
My bad.
Yeah. Action partners are gonna count your greenhouse gas emission. Yeah, I know.
Thanks, Jesse. David, would you like to?
Thank you.
I definitely won't need 3 minutes, so you don't need a timer. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you for inviting me to introduce myself. My name's David Pollitt. I'm a geoscientist by profession. Unlike Mike and Jesse, many of you won't know me. My family and I recently moved to Silverton full-time. So earlier this year, just before the school year started, we wanted to put our girls in school here. We've owned property in Silverton for a number of years, I think just over 9 years. That's my wife, Sarah. We have two young girls in school, and I'm fortunate enough now that I work remotely. So it's really enabled us to be here full time. So that's what's prompted the change in our lives. And we're feel very fortunate to be here. I have an interest in history. We own a historic building in town, although not in the historic overlay district. So we live near the Catholic Church on Reese Street in a property that was built in the 19th century. And I've done a lot of research on that property with Casey and Ray at the Historical Society. So I understand a little bit about owning historic property. I understand some of the concerns and some of the opportunities. I view it as a stewardship of that property, and one day it will pass from my ownership to someone else. So it's important to maintain that in the way that respects that history and honors the purpose of the building and the way it fits in the town. So I don't have any background in historic preservation, but I am enthusiastic about it. I really saw this when I was looking at the planning website, and I thought, oh, this is an opportunity to become more involved with my community. And since we're here for the long term, I wanted to take the opportunity to try and contribute. So that's my pitch.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
And I am just going to highlight a few notes from Maria's application, if that's okay. She grew up in Silverton. Her parents were miners, and she graduated from Silverton High School. She studied American history at Fort Lewis, and she taught Southwest history, as well as anthropology and archaeology. She served on Durango's Historic Preservation Committee, and her goal is to preserve historic buildings and mining history in town, applying her education and institutional knowledge of Silverton. And she says, as a Latina and a senior citizen, I believe it is in our best interest to represent a mixture of our population in Silverton. So a few notes on her.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Questions?
I had kind of overarching question for all of you, so I don't know how we want to run this, but if you guys want to come up and give a response, but something that's been in my mind a lot, and Jesse, you kind of spoke to this, is that I think sometimes the historic review, and you did Mike too, the historic review process or requirements can lead to additional steps, to additional confusion, sometimes additional expense for the home builder or landowner. Just because it takes longer to get through the process, they might need an attorney that, you know, just is a more complicated process sometimes. And so considering that we're facing a historic housing crisis, and it's a real top priority of the town to build structures to house people or make it easier for things to get built. How do we what's your perspective on aligning historic preservation process and requirements in Silverton while making it easier and more affordable to construct housing? So how do you align those two? And what do you think you bring to help us create a better process for the historic review committee and getting through? So if anybody wants to take us up first.
Why do you want to go in the order that we? I think, Tina, that is the $150,000, 3 million, depending on your building question. Like, absolutely. And I think that's a process that right now, quite candidly, is somewhat broken because the requirements can be different for different individuals. That's something I want to see fixed in terms of the clarity. And there are a lot of building materials out there that you know, are modern, but have a historic affectation. For example, there's been a lot of discussion at the current historic review board of siding and how big the siding needs to be and whether it needs to be actual wood or it can be cement look wood. I mean, you guys went through this with the Anisi Park, right? And I think what I can bring to the committee is having spent a lot of time. My dad has worked in construction his whole life, and he does distribution for Builders First Source. And I have grown up around construction sites, and I have been a general contractor a number of times for a construction project. And one thing that I have found really interesting with our current project is just what in our climate where there is a lot of sun and it's also cold and you want to insulate and you want it to look historic, like what does that mean? Because those are a lot of requirements for building materials. And there's a lot of recommendations in the current builder's handbook and code, which maybe conflict with the available materials right now and maybe don't necessarily have a historic basis. So for example, the width of the siding, that's a guideline that is not written anywhere. It has been enforced repeatedly by the historic committee. I know that I'm probably going to make some enemies by saying this, but I think we should revisit whether that width of the siding number that has been enforced, even though it's not written down anywhere and doesn't correspond to historic buildings in town, is actually a number we should be enforcing because, as it turns out, cement siding that is, wood look, that lasts for a long time and is relatively inexpensive and is insulating and is fire resistant, is slightly different than that width. But gosh, it's a good building material. It's cost effective. We're putting it up places that aren't in town and it looks almost identical visually. So that's an example of the kind of thing where those types of discussions I think are really productive to have and can be helpful for the average citizen who maybe doesn't want to call 36 siding manufacturers in order to get that information.
Thanks.
I agree with everything she said. My concern is that there is confusion. There is confusion in all the things that people have to deal with. And that certainly could be straightened out, streamlined, make it a process which goes a lot smoother. So then all the little confusing details, I too have been in remodeling and construction all my life. I appreciate what she said about that. And her father-in-law, a very nice man, and we had some great conversations right across the street. So I understand all of that. Of course, the housing issue is not a separate issue, but it's an important issue. But I get back to what I think I find the most important, the historical value of the town and what it represents. So that would be my first priority. It's a historical organization, and we have to pay attention to housing, obviously, and all the details of construction and so forth, which, like I said, I know a little bit about since I've done enough of that in my life. However, I'm really, really concerned that a lot of people coming in to town now, I hate to say it, but they may not have the appreciation of the history of the town like some of us do. So that's something that we have to put forward to these newer people who come in and think they just want to come in and do whatever they please. I don't think so. I think you have a committee like the Historic Review Committee to help them along into the right direction. I'm not saying force them. I'm not saying punish them. This shouldn't be a punishing organization. It should be an organization that helps people get to where they want to go. And at the same time, it helps the historic value of the town. Thank you.
I'll just briefly mention two things. I think one is context, which was raised a couple of times tonight, is important. And as Mike said, a tourist getting off the train at Blair Street will have an immediate impression of Silverton. I think we're all appreciative of the things that are unique about Silverton and make it a place we want to be and want to live and want to welcome people to. So I think the context is important, whether a building is in the historic overlay district or whether it's in another residential part of town or something else, as well as the context of what that building is trying to do and who is making the changes to it. But I think one of the key things that the Historic Review Committee could be is a resource for the community to help simplify, as Jesse said, and something that could be a positive change that would make people more likely to understand what the requirements are and where they can best spend their money and where they might not need to make any changes.
Based upon your answers, finding the balance between the history, the construction, the restoration costs, is it not appropriate, in your opinions, to use a material or a substitute material that looks virtually identical in every single way, regardless if it's vertical or horizontal? That's a joke for Gloria. And regardless of color, texture, if it's virtually identical in every single way, but it's not historically accurate because of the material that it's produced by, why can't we use it? And I've heard arguments because I've sat in those board meetings. What do you guys think? What's your opinion on that? You don't have to get up. You don't have to get up. It's fine.
Maybe I'll come on briefly. Again, I think it's through the context. My own personal opinion would be the Historic Review Committee, any committee overseeing matters like that, and move with the time. If the material is visually and materially indistinguishable from what it's replacing, I would support using it if it's cost effective and appropriate for the situation. Again, in the context matters.
Perfect.
Kind of agree with that also. I mean, why not take advantage of the most modern technology, as long as, and what you alluded to, is to have it fit in what we already have and what we want to promote, the real historic value. So it's not really so much the materials. I agree with using the latest and the best and the most cost effective, all of that. You need to look at, everybody needs to look at that, no matter what project they're doing, the cost, the material, and so forth. My contention is, no matter what it is, it's got to fit in.
Yeah, I would say I would agree with both of these comments. I think the context matters, like you said, and sometimes the context is that that material is replacing something that has inherent value. There are certain fixtures in town where nothing like it is being made anymore.
Of course.
And just because, and it's there already. And I think that would be probably the exception, is when it's something that is irreplaceable and there's a historic looking product that can replace it. That's not the same thing as, you know, it's one thing if you're taking 7-inch horizontal lap siding down and replacing it with 7.5-inch historic like lap siding. It's something else if there's some kind of ornate wooden structure that is specific to the Silverton community. And then you're putting the lap siding on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
I've got a quick one. So not playing on the conflict of cost versus historic nature, but more like how tight a grip does the community want on the cohesiveness? Many historic districts have approved color palettes. So like downtown Durango, 2nd Ave, there's like 15 colors that you're allowed to use as use by right. Anything outside of that, you have to go in front of the committee with the color and propose how you're going to use it. Is that something that you would be for or against?
I hate seeing too much restriction that way, because then it starts to get a little crazy and it drives people nuts when they say, oh, I'm only restricted to a certain amount of things. But I do understand it, and you're right, because I don't want to see tropical colors. I don't want to see something from the Caribbean. See what I mean? I mean, there is, I know, because I used to be a professional painter also, there are certain colors so that are historically valuable. I'm not going to use, I don't like to use the word correct, even though you might want to use that. But there are certain colors. I first painted the what's now Natalia's. So I came up with that color scheme and the decorative look of the metal. So I'm not bragging, I'm just saying what I did was I went with 3 Victorian combination colors. It's cream, it's black, and kind of an off red. So that is a historically approved combination of colors. Now, that's what I used to paint that building many years ago. So I understand that, but we have to be, and here I am saying that we have to be a little flexible to some degree. So people have their preferences, they have their ideas, but I think a historical review committee can tell by saying, looking at something and say, oh, that's like way out of line. We don't want anything that's way out of line. A little flexibility is fine, but don't paint that building pink or whatever it is, you know what. So that's where the committee comes in and says, well, we have certain suggestions that we hope you will follow. It's cooperation between builder, the remodeler, or the painter, or whoever it is, and the committee. And I'm sure if you do it right, you can come to a consensus that will please everyone. Again, I'm just interested in the historic value, keeping that.
I think in the specific example of Silverton's case, that horse might already folded. There's quite a variation in colour palettes, I'd say. More Silverton somewhere that's had those rules for a long time. But I think that type of view should be within the purview of the committee to discuss. And to have that flexibility, as Mike's alluding to say, well, we really should have a colour palette to preserve what we think is unique about Silverton. So I think it probably should be in everything should be in purview of the community.
I think I would be a little bit more careful, just simply because currently it's not within the purview of the committee to choose colors. So that would be a choice, a departure from our current precedent. So I would want some citizen input on it, I think. before making that choice. I think the historic committee, quite honestly, if they were to overhaul the different things that they regulate, there are potentially bigger fish to fry first. And I'm not saying that colors wouldn't be important, but one of the things that our current code tries to do is combine 3 different distinct architectural styles that we have here in town. And the resulting designs that come before the committee are an amalgamation of these styles. And if there was a mechanism to say, hey, we have these 3 styles in town, pick one and stick with that, then I could see the colors being contextually, they would make more sense, because Victorian architecture historically is very colorful, not necessarily Caribbean, but there are a multitude of colors on Victorian architecture.
Yes.
And Victorian architecture is not the same as the Denver Square as a stone building that some people think the white is. And those are both really historical, beautiful types of buildings that we have in Silverton, and they're distinctly different.
Thank you. Well, we have a tough.
Can I ask one more question? I know, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go for it because, and I'm wondering about moving the podium, the setup is just weird. Thanks.
That's you.
Yeah, maybe we can just, yeah, great, thanks. I'm wondering, I think in jest, people have referred to these committees, whether it's been joined with the planning commission or whatever, as the committee of good taste. The idea being like they get to decide the color or, like at any, I think you've all spoken to this idea of how is this a fair process for any individual who's going through it, and one that protects the historic value for the community. And so I'm just wondering, how do you avoid becoming the committee of good taste? This is a how question.
So I'll say in my professional life, one of the things that I do is called Lean Six Sigma, for those of you who may have heard of it. Looking at Liz, the birthplace of agile, like the horrible scrub, weekly stand up. But no, I mean, like, process improvement is something that is difficult, no matter whether you're working in the private or public sector. And I think the how is incredibly important. The processes and procedures have to be as clear and as lean as possible, I would say. And without diving into a really specific example, it's hard to describe exactly how that's accomplished. But I think personally, I would be thrilled to work with any of the people who have spoken here tonight, in that I think everyone has the same objective in accomplishing that. And I think we also have a lot of earnestness in general in the community right now on these kinds of things. And I guess I am eternally optimistic that these processes and procedures can be leaned down. And the SLA on going through the historic committee can be decreased and can be a bit more consistent.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jesse. I mean, I think any interaction that the public has with the historic review committee should be a conversation, and it should be a two-way dialogue. There should be opportunities for feedback. And I also think that the decisions that the committee makes should be clearly communicated and transparent and consistent. And so over time, you would have a body of work that builds upon the currently probably quite confusing design documents and the different standards that exist, and maybe clarify what constitutes historic architecture in Silverton and what the town, public, and the stakeholders want to see for their community. So I think over time, the historic review committee has an opportunity to build that body of work to demonstrate that this is what it should be. But obviously that should be really putting with the community and what they see.
It's all a little confusing to a degree, because in our history, here in Silverton, especially when it was a heavy duty mining town in the early days, people lived in everything from tents, lean-tos, shacks, sheds, logs, metal siding, all kinds of things. Talk about having maybe 3 distinct ways of looking at the architecture. We probably had 6 or 7 distinct ways of looking at the architecture. Really want to go back to real historic Silverton. I'm not saying I'm going to do it, but people lived in all kinds of situations. And so it was a mining town. People thought it wouldn't last for a while anyway. Mining was kind of a, you know, up and down type of situation. Somebody pitched a tent, that was their house. Somebody built a little lean-to, you know, or a space someplace, that was house. Not saying we should allow that. I'm saying, boy, you really start to look at the history of dwellings in Silverton. It's really pretty interesting. But you know, put a little pot in the corner or something in the tent, and that was it. Cooperation. I agree with David said. So it's going to be something that people have to cooperate and talk about. So the interaction between an official organization, like a historical organization, and the person building something, that's really important, that cooperation, that conversation, that discussion, really important.
Thank you.
So I think you should pick the 3 of us and maybe we'll have to expand the committee something and pick the 3 people, so put them on, because all 3 of us have our own good ways of looking at things.
I mean, I do think it's a shame we don't get to hear from Maria, because I do really think she brings a lot of great experience and historic context from having grown up in the town as well. So it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, she has a lot of experience and would qualify as one member with professional experience in American history, historic preservation. So I do, it is a huge bummer she's not here. I do want to advocate for her, because she would, all 4 would be excellent members.
Okay, but 400. I know Maria, she's wonderful. I know she's a real local.
Yeah.
Coin flip.
Nice.
I don't envy you.
I mean, what I really like about the 3 of you here tonight, and I think, again, like, it's just unfortunate that Maria's not here, because she would, I'm sure, add to this discussion and the dynamic and bring a lot of really important perspective. But I think what I'm hearing, and sort of what I think is important for this committee, is the balance of perspective and the longevity in the community with the kind of overall community context, and then the balancing of, I like what you're saying, Mike, about like the value of the history with sort of current practices and awareness of like how this is applied to individual lives, like to individual property owners who are really trying to improve their property and make it livable. And in doing so, I think really contribute to the community as well. And so looking through those lenses, you know, everything we've heard tonight is that, and I'm really struggling like to choose and to not have Maria here. Because I think the 3 of you did all of those, you know, sort of like approached each of those lenses in a really thorough and capable way.
I'm on the committee, so I think you guys should choose.
Oh, please.
I think that this dynamic's really nice. I think it's really unfortunate that Maria wasn't given the same opportunity that you guys were by being here, but if we have to make a decision tonight, we didn't get to find out all these other things from Maria, so I think we're more informed about them. Maria and I would choose the three of them. If we want to postpone to give Maria the same opportunity, I'd be open to that too, but we do have a meeting scheduled coming up. So that's where I'm at. If we have to make a decision right now, it's you three. If we want to wait, give Maria the same chance, I'm open to that too.
As an applicant, I totally agree with Megan. Maria would have something to say on what she has. And like I said, I know her well enough. I think you'd be impressed with her, and she deserves a list of.
We can
I
postpone.
also like that, although I'm a member of the Historical Society, I only joined when I came to town, so I wouldn't want to disagree. But I would throw my nomination in that case, for the Historical Society.
Oh, geez.
No, no. I remember as well. It's okay. Guys, I think we can postpone. I think that we should really hear from Maria, and the only rush is to become a certified local government. And we have been doing that for a long time. So I think it's okay if we wait a few more weeks, if that's what you guys want.
Is there an opportunity to appoint us provisionally with a special review or something like that, like after the first committee meeting?
I'm not sure that makes sense just because there's so much to figure out at the beginning, like the first, like, we need to talk about like how, like, is it just an advisory committee or is it a decision-making committee? What is within the scope? Is the scope going to expand? What's the process for deciding how much it expands? And I think that first meeting is going to be pretty substantive.
Or is there an alternate possibility, or, you know, like appointing someone as,
It's important to have an odd number for votes. But we totally could have an alternate.
it's not in the, I know we've done, oh my gosh, Lucy, we spent hours on these meetings going through the whole thing. We never once said alternate.
Yeah, well, yeah, we could have an alternate from the trustees and from the planning commission, but it's not written in to the ordinance we adopted earlier this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense to make that decision right now.
I think being the optimist again, it's really exciting that we had 4 people apply to be on this committee. This is a volunteer position that like takes time. And so it's really exciting. Question I had is the planning commission member is going to be nominated by the planning commission, right?
Yes.
Presented to us.
Yep.
Great. Yeah.
And there's 5 people on it that qualify.
I mean, could we?
That meeting's on the 18th,
On the 18th.
October 18th.
Yeah, for planning commission. Can we like, can we get them to vote? Can we get I'm also on the planning commission. I'm not trying to kick the can. It's not going to benefit me.
I don't know that coming into this, I was thinking knowing who was on the planning commission that's getting appointed would be helpful in deciding who the other ones would be to offset things, but I'm honestly thinking this has more to do with like dynamic and value and vision. And so I'd just be curious to know if Maria also like shares the same value and vision, or like has a very different idea for what the committee is supposed to be. That's really where I feel ignorant. It's not her skill or qualification. It's just like, what's her idea of this committee?
Yeah, and blending that perspective with the group.
Yeah.
We have to make a call as to deciding or not.
We really like to be decisive, I promise.
That's why I like to just randomly select them. No one will do a bad job.
Name in a hat? Should we just take the 4 names?
Well, you died 20.
I think if we make the decision.
I'm not, that was in jest.
Okay.
To retract, that was joke, sorry. Bad joke, bad joke. It's past 9.
So the proposal right now is to either accept the 3 candidates in front of us, but considering that we haven't heard from Maria, or to postpone to give Maria the opportunity to present or ask questions and then make a decision. Mhm.
I support either of those.
I know, me too.
I think it'd be a shame to not hear from her. Personally,
I didn't hear what you said, Dana.
I think it'd be a shame to not hear from her. Personally, I mean, again, I think you all would be great
I
candidates.
think great hostages too.
No, they've put in so much time tonight.
But we wouldn't be requiring them to come back to another meeting.
No,
No.
no.
Well, continued business is even later.
Yeah.
Is that what you guys want to do?
Then let's wait.
Okay, and so for the next meeting, how would you like that to be organized? Would you just like it to be basically an interview with Maria, or would you like all the candidates to come back?
I think we should try and replicate this with just Maria,
Okay, yeah, great.
and then we'll make a decision.
Yeah.
That's not fair to you guys too.
I didn't hear that.
To replicate the experience you just had, but just with Maria to streamline it, and then we'll make a call.
It's fair to let her have her say.
Yeah, so like.
Revenue side, yeah.
Bonus.
You guys are so much more informed citizens now.
I didn't write the questions down, Lucy, but we can probably just collect, sort of our series of.
Totally, yeah. We can go back through the recording and I'll.
I'm just not gonna, I'm declaring that I'm not having.
Thank you very much. This is awesome.
Thanks.
Excited to have your contribution. by the way.
Thank you for.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being so earnest with my questions about the committee.
Do you get paid all the time?
You just saw the budget, Mike. You just saw the budget. We voted to not increase our salaries.
Right. Cool. Thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
But we can make a motion to appoint you as the staff member, right?
Sure, yeah. So
You don't get out of here this quick.
you're right. That's a great point. So I requested that, additionally because I live in Annville, so I live outside of town. So I need special permission, to serve as the staff member. Yeah, I thought we'd be annexed by now and I thought I wasn't gonna have to ask for this. There's a few things we still have to do.
On your to-do list.
Yeah.
Someone likes to.
Make a motion to give Lucy special permission, Lucy Mulvihill, to serve as a staff member.
I second that wonderful motion.
Thanks, guys.
Does everyone vote yes?
Trustee Edwards? Yes. Yes.
Or yes?
Yes.
Everybody visibly voted yes.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Here,
That's for you to think about.
we're off the rails. Okay.
We need to make that. Now, I'm getting chips.
Yeah.
They have a point of.
Question. I know you want to.
Well, I just wanted to point out, to be under, like, not to be self-advocate, the de facto item is that one of the people lives in the overlay district. And I believe I'm the only applicant that lives in the overlay district.
Yeah.
Mike has a commercial building in the overlay district. Not living in it.
Yeah. But I've done business on Clare Street for 50 years.
Right. So it's just a point. Yeah, that it would be, that's one of the items you have to choose. You only have to be.
It's a property owner, so you don't technically have to live there.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says on the application, a property owner who resides in the overlay district.
Sorry, it's a year-round resident of the town and a property owner. I mean, yeah.
I mean,
We will double check.
We'll double check the application and the code. It says lives in the overlay district.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not trying to be.
Why don't we provide?
You feel bad.
He doesn't get paid, right? You want this really bad.
Okay, we'll put clarification in the memo for next week.
I mean, I also advocate for someone who gets through the process. I think that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse.
No, everyone has positive attributes. I wasn't trying to I thought it was a point of order.
Noted.
Yeah, it wasn't trying to be unfair, yeah.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is consideration to approve the consent agenda item.
In your consent,
You're, stay the rest of the meeting.
payroll, accounts payable, and your meeting minutes from the last meeting.
I have no,
I'll make a motion to approve. Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All into the high five.
roll call at your leisure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Edwards? Yes. Trustee Cranker? Yes. Trustee Harper?
Absolutely.
Trustee Bierma?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney?
Yes.
Mayor Furman?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to make a note that Lucy's stealing our food.
Yeah, I got over there.
Just want that noted.
I told her to.
Let me put that somewhere.
Before you leave, I want to acknowledge on the next item in staff reports, thank you very, very much for making that revised memo. That's exactly what I was looking for. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
It was great.
Awesome. I was gonna point that out, but you got it. Okay, for staff reports. The facilities Parks and Rec director position closed today. So we hope to have interviews in the next at the end of next week. If not going into the following week. I'll be reaching out to the facilities Parks and Rec committee to sit in on those and schedule that with you.
Great.
Exciting. We have a code rewrite. We have the code rewrite consultants Clarion coming to town this week. They will be facilitating the code rewrite stakeholders group, the first meeting at Town Hall on Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. If you didn't get your application in, it's okay, just come and you'll be accepted. They will be at Elevated Coffee Bear and, or they will be at Elevated Coffee Bear. They will be at Elevated and Coffee Bear on Thursday morning. And then they'll also be Thursday night at Kendall from 5 to 7 for a community forum on our code rewrite. So you can come ask questions and learn more about our code rewrite process. Also during that time, I had the honor to accept an award at the Colorado American Planning Association on September 28th with community builders for a community engagement award around the Compass Master Plan. So I would like to celebrate this award on Thursday as well. As we learn more about our code rewrite, we can celebrate the community engagement we got on our master plan. So I'm trying to find a cake to come to the Kendall Community Center on Thursday night from 5 to 7 and enjoy a piece of cake and look at our fancy award. And it was just a really fun time. I also spoke with JJ on building civic capacity. And we had about 50 people in our breakout group. So it was a very exciting time.
I think our cake should be a historic building in tropical colors.
I think it should be an engagement cake.
Tropical. I love it.
I think it
We should get the master plan.
Whoever printed on it.
And then I was going to point out the memo, Prop 123 memo that is included as requested by trustees in our last meeting, hopefully laying it out in a little bit more digestible format. It's great.
I don't believe we had any committee meetings.
I did
A
know
finance-
what.
Are you, okay,
That's right, we did every.
I think the main update that was relevant, we already talked about broadband a little bit with Beth, right? And so just for everybody paying attention, we, what did we say? We spent in our budget $1,600 for Region 9, and like the value that that regional group is providing is just huge. And so just so everybody knows, Willie chairs it. Alex Lannis is our member at large, and then Lori and I, whichever one of us is free, is the town member, but just all the things that they're working on, business loans, how they support San Juan Development Association, and again, working on Prop 123 and broadband. It's really an entity that's like advocating for municipal governments as well. So I just wanted to call out that, and Region 9 was helping to provide some feedback on the Prop 123 indicators. So just like Lucy talked, just knowing that there's other folks that are kind of advocating on behalf of municipal interests, and Shaq Powers really talked about, he's talking to some of our state legislature partners on really more nuanced regional approaches to some of these bills, right? It has at the federal, at the state level, but really they're programs that don't quite work for anybody. And so they need a little bit more local municipal nuance. So just putting a plug out there for the work that they're doing to advocate on behalf of us as well.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, very long. Good.
Thank you for attending again.
It was great.
There was a Bonita Peak
Oh, yeah.
meeting. Sorry, it was Wednesday, last Wednesday
Not keep track of all these. Okay.
at Kendall, and I was supposed to attend, but I just couldn't. We have staff meetings on Wednesday, but I am on that committee and I am looking forward to going to one. But I also wanted to note that it did happen.
And was there a finance committee meeting?
No, that will be next week.
Cool. Great. Trustee reports. Great. Continued business, OHB special election results.
So this is informational only, but we held a special election on October 3rd. And the question was, shall a route be established to allow the use of off-highway vehicles on streets in the town of Silverton, allowing for off-highway vehicles access to businesses and trailhead access? And the yes votes were 128 and no votes were 286. So the status quo will remain.
Do you happen to know how many ballots were rejected from?
So there were about 40. And those weren't because we couldn't verify signatures. It was because people either didn't sign it or didn't put an address on, or didn't, like, they just didn't fill it out completely. So I would stress, if you want your voice heard, please read the instructions.
Thank you very much. I got that question from a handful of people.
Yep.
All right. Closing public comment. We'll start in person.
Hello. I have my budget. This is why I didn't comment on the budget earlier, because I had a bunch of questions and Gloria answered the majority of them.
This
So,
is SRO community member.
yes, I'm sorry.
Been here all day.
Right. Okay, so one thing I do at work, as some of you guys may know, is like recommend salary adjustment information. And while most of the information I use at work is like for private sector, I did do like a little bit of research on the 1.5 COLA increase because it felt really small to me given the inflation that we've been having. And I found that in their lagging Bureau of Statistics data, 4 to 5% is relatively standard nationally for government civil servants in local, not like city or like big government officials, but local bodies like this one. And in addition, that's the lagging data for 2022. So like 2023 saw a higher cost of living increase across the private sector. So I would recommend that you all consider breaking out your salaries and benefits line items separately into one chunk for discussion, and your projects in alignment with your priorities into a separate line item. We have seen a lot of turnover in the town with some particular positions. Gloria, not to put you on the spot, but you are doing a fantastic job and everyone in town knows it. You a 1.5% raise is absolutely ridiculous, and I would like to see that number be higher. I know that that's not in the direction of the goal here, which is like, I think we have like something like a $70,000 to $270,000 gap, depending on who you ask and what the numbers are, difference to make up, and that doesn't help, and that's the wrong direction. But that was my first point. And since I'm probably almost out of time, the second, okay, My second point is along the lines of inflation. You have a number of items where you have accounted for inflation. Propane rate increases have been in the double-digit percentages. Sometimes your propane increases have been flat year over year. And while that's a budget dust for each line item, your propane increases appear in like 5 or 6 different places. And so right now you have a delta of 0 for that. And I would suggest being more realistic. Signage has been a hot topic among the community, specifically for 4-way stop signs, as well as the new sign in the front of town. And that is a flat increase right now. So another thing that doesn't help you meet your budget gap, but is a suggestion in the wrong direction. And then I would also suggest, because you have this fancy new software with the little notes, that pilot projects where you are, say, testing out a staff member on a temporary basis be flagged in some way. You can even use your little flag note thing if you would like, or starred, so that when you have this discussion next year, those those temporary staffing members are not necessarily implied for future employment. And I'm probably out of time. I have like 6 more, but I think those are the most important to
You
me.
can totally email them to me.
I will. Don't worry.
Gary, I said it's okay, you can keep going.
I'm happy to send you the Bureau of Labor Statistics data.
I know that number. I just couldn't get to that number in the budget.
I'm sure.
But yeah, no, please send me your other note.
I think
I will.
Okay.
it was like.
Thank you.
On Zoom,
Sometimes 0.
one more opportunity, click raise hand if you would like to speak during our public comment period. And then we'll close the public comment period. The time is 9:38 PM and I adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much. We have a whole lot of fun stuff coming up. See the end of our agenda for the